forced from ancestral lands to make way for tracts and settlements. Resistance was met with brutal military campaigns, and traditional ways of life were systematically dismantled. Tribes that had once roamed freely across the plains were confined to reservations, often in lands that could not sustain them. The railroad accelerated this displacement, making previously remote regions accessible to settlers, miners, and soldiers, whose arrival brought disease, resource competition, and cultural disruption. Specific examples of conflict illuminate the human toll. The Sioux and Cheyenne, for instance, experienced direct encroachment on sacred lands, and violent clashes erupted as rail crews and the military moved in. Ceremonies, hunting grounds, and villages were destroyed, leaving deep scars on communities and generations. Beyond the immediate human cost, the railroad disrupted the cultural and spiritual fabric of the West. Indigenous knowledge of the land, sustainable hunting practices, and seasonal migration patterns were rendered impossible as steel lines bisected the plains. Families were separated, traditions were lost, and languages faced further erosion. The Iron Horse, celebrated as a triumph, was in reality a vehicle of cultural erasure. The question emerges: can progress ever justify the destruction of civilizations and centuries of knowledge? As we trace the iron tracks, we confront a legacy that is painful, complex, and morally challenging. While the human cost of the railroad is profound, its environmental impact is equally staggering. The construction of the tracks required massive deforestation, as timber was needed for railroad ties, fuel, and the growth of new settlements. Rivers were dammed or diverted to supply water for steam engines, and wetlands were drained to make way for farmland and towns. Perhaps no species suffered more than the American bison, whose population plummeted from tens of millions to near extinction due to hunting and habitat disruption facilitated by rail access. The once vast herds, essential to the ecological balance of the plains, were decimated, leading to cascading consequences for predators, plants, and indigenous communities that relied on them. Soil erosion became a pressing concern as vegetation was cleared for construction, and water sources became polluted from industrial runoff. Landscapes that had evolved over millennia were irrevocably altered in a matter of decades. The railroad's environmental footprint was enormous, yet often overlooked in narratives of progress. It reshaped rivers, flattened mountains, and created corridors for invasive species. By connecting the continent, the Iron Horse inadvertently spread ecological damage at a scale previously unimaginable. As viewers, we are compelled to ask, at what point does human ambition cross the line from innovation to exploitation? The environmental cost of conquest is not measured in steel alone, but in the scars left upon the land itself. The economic impact of the Transcontinental Railroad was as transformative as it was paradoxical. Towns sprang up almost overnight along the tracks, fueled by commerce, mining, and the promise of new opportunities. Yet these boomtowns were fragile, often collapsing once resources were depleted or rail routes shifted. Wealth concentrated in the hands of railroad magnates and financiers, creating stark inequalities and contributing to corruption scandals like the Credit Mobilier affair. Ordinary laborers and settlers frequently found themselves exploited, struggling to survive in towns whose lifespans were tied directly to the ebb and flow of the railroad. Ghost towns, abandoned mines, and ruined settlements became common, a testament to the volatility of this rapid expansion. Meanwhile, industries dependent on the railroad flourished. Agriculture, mining, and cattle ranching expanded into previously inaccessible territories, reshaping the economic map of the West. Yet this expansion came at a cost: overexploitation of resources, labor unrest, and environmental degradation. The paradox is clear. The railroad promised prosperity and delivered it for a select few, while leaving instability, inequality, and ruin in its wake. How should we measure progress when its benefits are uneven and its consequences enduring? The boom and bust cycles of the West illustrate that advancement without foresight can lead to systemic instability, a lesson as relevant today as it was in the 19th century. The Transcontinental Railroad leaves us with a paradoxical legacy. It connected distant regions, facilitated trade, and spurred national growth. Yet it also destroyed cultures, landscapes, and communities. Its iron tracks are a symbol of ambition and human ingenuity, but they are also a reminder of the consequences of unchecked expansion. Modern America continues to grapple with patterns established during this period: environmental degradation, economic inequality, and ongoing challenges faced by indigenous communities. Reflecting on this history forces us to reconsider the narratives we embrace. Progress is rarely simple. It is complex, multifaceted, and often intertwined with loss. As we look across the American West today, we see the enduring marks of the iron horse: rail lines still in use, towns that flourished and faded, and landscapes forever altered. The story of the Transcontinental Railroad is not just one of triumph. It is a cautionary tale. We must ask ourselves, what do we choose to remember, and what do we choose to ignore? Only by confronting these difficult truths can we truly understand the costs of ambition, innovation, and conquest. For Western Dailies official viewers, this is a chance to see history as it is: layered, complex, and at times unsettling. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations of the untold stories that shaped our world. If you found this journey into the hidden history of the American West revealing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. At Western Dailies Official, we uncover the untold stories of history, exploring the triumphs, tragedies, and paradoxes that shape the world we live in. Join us and see history in a whole new light.